Jimmy Conlon is on the ground, holding his stomach after getting shot. He's thinking about his mistakes and regrets instead of his whole life flashing before his eyes, as people often say. In the distance, Jimmy's son, Mike, is shouting and trying to avoid getting shot at. 16 hours earlier, Jimmy was at a bar. He went downstairs and found Danny McGuire, the son of his old boss, seen making a shady deal with crooked cop. Jimmy needed $800 to fix his broken heater, and Danny agreed to give it to him if Jimmy dressed up as Santa Claus at his house because the original Santa canceled. Jimmy agreed reluctantly. Mike works at a gym where he helps boys who don't have dads. One of his best students is a boy named Legs. At home, Mike lives with his wife, Gabriella, and their daughters, Caitlin and Lily. They're expecting their third child, and Gabriella is making a collage to show their family life before the new baby comes. Mike sees a photo of himself as a kid with Jimmy and covers it up with a picture of his daughter because it makes him uncomfortable. Danny meets his father and some others to talk about selling a special kind of heroin. Scene: his dad refuses, which upsets Danny. The people who wanted to sell the heroin tell Danny they'll come to collect the money they gave him to convince his dad. Scene doesn't want anything to do with his old criminal life, and this confuses Danny. Jimmy becomes Santa at Scene's house, but he's drunk and acts inappropriately, even burning his hand by accident. He swears in front of the kids. Scene, who has been friends with Jimmy for a long time, joins him to cool off, and they share a cigarette. Jimmy used to work as an enforcer for Scene. At a diner, Detective John Harding and his partner, Detective Torres, approach Jimmy. Harding knows about Jimmy's criminal history and his connection to Scene, who has corrupt cops on his side. Harding gives Jimmy his card, offering help or a way to confess his crimes if he ever needs it. Mike, who also works as a limo driver, takes the people who wanted to sell heroin to Danny's house. While waiting outside, Mike sees Legs riding his bike alone and tells him to go home or he'll tell his mom. He offers Legs a ride, but inside the house, Danny jokingly gives the heroin sellers fake money from a Monopoly game. This angers them, leading to a fight where Danny shoots one of them. The other one escapes, hurt, and Legs records it on video. Mike starts the car, but Danny breaks the window, pulls him inside, and forces him into the house when Legs leaves the car. A distraction allows Mike to hit Danny and fight with him and his friend. Mike manages to get away, but leaves his wallet behind. Mike rushes home and calls Gabriella, who's with their daughters at her brother Ricky's house. He urges her to stay put until he contacts her again. Suddenly, a loud pounding echoes at the door. It's Jimmy, who hasn't visited Mike's home since his wife's funeral. Jimmy steps outside for a smoke just as Danny enters the house. Mike spots Danny, who's pointing a gun at him. A gunshot rings out, but it's Jimmy who fired it. After shooting Danny in the neck, Mike applies pressure to the wound, but Danny doesn't make it. Jimmy departs, and Mike dials the police, claiming his father shot Danny in self-defense. Jimmy then calls Scene and admits what he's done. Scene rushes to inform his wife, who responds by slapping Scene and falling apart. The corrupt cops who met Danny earlier arrive at Mike's house and identify Danny's body, leading to Mike's arrest. Jimmy pursues them through the streets, eventually ramming their car into a store. He frees Mike and Mike seizes one of the cops' guns. The surviving cop attempts to shoot them, but Jimmy intervenes, killing the cop himself. Several bystanders witness this, and a manhunt is launched for Mike and Jimmy. They make their way through the subway, constantly watching their backs. In a subway bathroom, Jimmy engages in a fight while Mike escapes through a train. He manages to get Jimmy onto the same train just in time. Despite Mike's desire to reunite with his family, Jimmy warns him that Scene will come after both of them and Mike's family. To survive, they must stick together for the night. Jimmy meets with Scene, hoping for forgiveness for what he did to Danny. Instead, Scene vows to eliminate Mike first, before allowing Jimmy to meet his end. Two of Scene's henchmen go after Mike's family at Ricky's house, but after Mike's warning, they find nothing and leave the family unharmed. Scene calls a hitman named Price to go after Mike and Jimmy. The two seek help from Legs at his apartment. Mike discovers Legs' brothers there and instructs him to get Legs to assist them. A neighbor notices Mike and Jimmy, prompting her to call the police. As the cops arrive, Mike and Jimmy must formulate an escape plan. They cut the power to the building just as Price arrives, having killed a cop at the entrance. Equipped with night vision, Price pursues them through the dark stairways. He catches up to them as they start a fire in an apartment. Jimmy battles Price, and the building begins to burn. Jimmy burns Price's face and wrestles him to the ground, offering Mike the chance to shoot Price. However, Jimmy advises against it, and they flee as the police arrive. Price eliminates the officers, and the apartment explodes as Mike and Jimmy make their getaway. Jimmy brings Mike to his brother Eddie's house. When Jimmy admits to killing Scene's son, Eddie panics and demands that Jimmy leaves. Eddie then informs Mike that Jimmy murdered their cousin, who was set to testify against Scene. Jimmy had previously told Mike that someone else was responsible for the cousin's death. Mike goes back to Ricky's place to retrieve Gabriella and the girls. Meanwhile, Jimmy decides it's time to resolve everything once and for all. He goes to the bar where Sean conducts his business and eliminates all the hitmen present. This leads to a confrontation between Jimmy and Sean in a train yard, with both exchanging gunfire. Sean starts to flee, and Jimmy hesitates, but eventually shoots him. Sean is wounded in the side, attempts to keep moving, but eventually collapses. Jimmy approaches Sean as he succumbs to his injuries. Legs visits the police station with the video evidence of Danny killing the Albanian mobster near his building. He also provides details about Mike and explains why Mike couldn't have committed these crimes. Jimmy reunites with Mike and his family at a lake house in North Shore. He finally gets to meet Gabriella and the girls, although Lily isn't particularly thrilled to see Jimmy. While Mike takes the family to the lake to feed ducks, Jimmy remains indoors and stumbles upon Gabriella's collage. Suddenly, Price, standing in the distance, shoots Jimmy in the side. Hearing the gunshots, Mike instructs Ricky to take the girls to safety. Armed with his own firearm, Mike engages in a firefight with Price in the woods. Jimmy manages to retrieve his rifle, but is severely wounded and falls. Aware that he's about to die, summoning his last ounce of strength, he loads a bullet into the rifle and raises it just in time to shoot Price in the head before Price can harm Mike. Mike rushes to his father's side just before Jimmy passes away. Harding and his fellow officers arrive, and he reassures Mike that he knows Mike is innocent. Harding then examines Jimmy's hand and discovers a list of everyone Jimmy has ever killed. Later, Mike is at the gym, watching Legs win a fight against another kid, filling him with pride. Upon returning home, he finds Gabriella and the girls baking Christmas cookies. He enters his room and dresses in formal attire, presumably for Jimmy's funeral. Before departing, he takes one last look at the picture of him and Jimmy by the lake. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe Mango Recap for more video like this and help the channel grow.